Disclaimer: this story is based on true events, with names and some details changed to protect the privacy of those involved. The following content is for storytelling and emotional reflection purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I first sensed that something about my father wasn't quite right. Not in an obvious way, he wasn't acting strange or saying anything out of place, but there was something in his eyes that didn't match the calm smile he always wore around the family. It was like he was carrying a secret, one too heavy to share, and for some reason, I felt like I was the only one who noticed. My father had always been the strong one. The one who fixed the broken door hinges, who taught me how to ride a bike, who never let us see him cry. To my mother, he was a loving husband. To my little brother, a hero. To our neighbors, he was the quiet, respectful man who waved politely every morning before work. But to me, he was slowly becoming a mystery I couldn't ignore. I was 17 at the time. Old enough to sense tension but still too young to understand what it truly meant. My mom was busy with her job and managing the house, and my brother was always glued to his video games. But I watched. I noticed the way Dad's smile faltered when he thought no one was looking. The way he lingered outside longer than usual after coming home. The way he sometimes flinched at sudden sounds, like his mind was far away, caught in something he didn't want to remember. It wasn't just stress, I knew that. It was deeper than that. I began to observe more closely. His phone was always upside down, always on silent. He was taking calls late at night, in hushed tones, pacing around the backyard as if the walls themselves might hear him. Sometimes, he would sit in the living room after everyone else had gone to bed, staring blankly at the TV, not watching anything. It became hard for me to sleep. My heart would race at night with unanswered questions. Who was he talking to? What was bothering him so much that he couldn't share it with his own family? And why did I feel like I was the only one who saw him falling apart? One night, I caught him slipping out of the house around midnight. He didn't know I was awake. I watched from the stairs as he quietly grabbed his car keys and left, without telling anyone. My curiosity got the better of me. I waited a few minutes and followed him, on foot, hiding in the shadows, just far enough not to be seen. He drove to a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Parked the car in front of a small apartment building. And then, he knocked on a door. A woman opened it. They didn't hug, but there was a silence between them, an understanding. He stepped inside. The door closed. I didn't know what to think. I just stood there in the dark, shivering, the night suddenly colder than before. When he came home over an hour later, he looked calmer. Like he had emptied something out of his soul. I wanted to ask him about it right then, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to know more. Over the next few days, I did my best to act normal. But inside, I was torn between anger and worry. Was he having an affair? Was this the man I had trusted my whole life? Or was it something else? Then one day, the pieces started falling into place. I was cleaning up the dining table when I found a folded paper under the placemat, an envelope with no name. Inside was a receipt from a therapy clinic. Weekly sessions. Paid in cash. And another note from a woman named Zara. The handwriting was gentle, but the message hit hard. I'm proud of your progress. Facing the truth is never easy, but you're doing it. Don't let guilt swallow you. You are still capable of being loved. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep, and I sat down next to him on the couch. He was sipping tea, looking distant again. I asked him straight, "Who is Zara?" He didn't respond right away. But his eyes, tired and glassy, turned to mine. And in that moment, something shifted. He didn't get angry. He didn't deny it. He just exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for years. "Promise me," he said quietly, "that you won't hate me after what I tell you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. My heart was pounding. I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew it would change everything. What he told me that night wasn't what I expected. It wasn't just about infidelity. It was about pain, trauma, choices made in moments of weakness, and years of guilt that had turned into silence. And somehow, in all of it, I was the one he chose to finally open up to. But that night was only the beginning. What I heard from him in the following days broke my heart, changed how I saw my family, and forced me to grow up faster than I ever thought I would. Because the truth wasn't just hidden behind locked doors and late-night calls. It was hidden inside my father's soul. And I was the only one who saw it, before it was too late. He sat there in silence after asking me that one question, "Promise me you won't hate me." The weight of his voice, the way he looked at me like a broken man who had nothing left to lose, made my throat tighten. I nodded slowly, trying to hold back the lump rising in my chest. I had never seen my father this way. Vulnerable. Human. The silence between us stretched long before he finally spoke. "I've made mistakes," he said quietly, barely above a whisper. "But they didn't start the way you might think." I leaned in, listening, my heart beating faster with every word. He told me it began a few years ago. Back when things at home still seemed fine on the surface. But behind closed doors, he and my mom had started growing apart. Not in the loud, dramatic way most people imagine, no shouting matches or slammed doors. Just distance. Cold dinners. Short answers. Long silences. My mom was busy working overtime trying to keep the bills paid. Dad was working late too, but more and more, it felt like he was choosing not to come home. He said they had drifted without even realizing it. I wanted to ask why they never tried to fix it, but I didn't interrupt. Something in his voice told me there was more. He admitted that during one of those long weeks, when everything at home felt heavy, he met Zara. She wasn't some stranger he met in secret. She was actually a therapist giving a talk at his office about stress management. At first, it was nothing more than polite conversation. But after a few sessions, mandatory for his workplace, he found himself opening up to her in ways he hadn't done with anyone in years. It wasn't physical, at least not at first. It was emotional. She listened. Asked questions. She noticed his silence the way I had. And in that space, he let down his guard. I felt torn. Part of me was angry. Angry that he didn't come to Mom. That he didn't try harder to fix what was broken in our house. But another part of me, the deeper part, understood that sometimes people don't break all at once. Sometimes, they fall apart slowly, quietly, when no one's watching. He told me he hated himself for what came next. That the connection with Zara became more than just therapy. That lines blurred. That guilt crept in. But what haunted him the most wasn't the secret, it was how he started to see himself. He said, "I felt like a fraud, living two lives. One with all of you, where I pretended everything was fine. And one in the shadows, where I was just a man trying to escape his own pain." I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning. My father, the man I trusted most, was living a life I never saw coming. And yet, here he was, finally being honest. Not hiding. Not lying. Just laying it all bare. He admitted that Zara eventually cut things off. Not because she didn't care, but because she knew it wasn't right. She encouraged him to go back to therapy, real therapy. To face the root of his unhappiness. To work on himself, not run from what he was feeling. That's when he started going to the clinic. Quietly. Alone. Not because he wanted to keep lying, but because he didn't know how to explain it to my mother. To us. He said he wanted to fix himself before he tried to fix anything else. I asked him why he never told Mom. Why he kept it all bottled up even after it ended. He looked down at his hands and said, because I didn't want her to look at me the way I looked at myself. That hit hard. The next few days after that conversation were heavy. He didn't bring it up again, and I didn't push. I carried it all with me, unsure of what to do. I didn't want to betray his trust, but I couldn't look at my mother the same way either. I started noticing little things between them, like how she never really asked him where he was going, or why he stayed out late. Maybe she already knew something deep down. Or maybe she stopped caring long ago. At school, I found myself zoning out during classes. My friends were laughing about weekend plans while I was lost in thoughts about secrets and silence. I kept thinking, how many families are walking around like ours, looking normal from the outside while holding so much pain inside? One evening, I found my father in the garage. He was fixing the old toolbox, wiping his hands with a cloth, humming to himself like he used to when I was younger. For a second, it felt like nothing had changed. But everything had. I asked him if he still loved Mom. He paused, looked up, and said, I never stopped. But love doesn't always look like what we think it should. That answer stayed with me. It wasn't just about cheating. It was about years of silence, of not knowing how to ask for help. It was about the fear of being seen as weak. The fear of losing everything by telling the truth. He wasn't proud of what he'd done. He never tried to excuse it. But he was trying to make it right now, quietly, painfully, one step at a time. And I realized that helping him didn't mean forgiving everything instantly. It meant being someone who listened. Someone who didn't walk away. But even as I tried to understand, a part of me still wondered, what would happen if Mom ever found out? Could our family survive the truth? Or were we already too far gone? I didn't have the answers yet. All I knew was this: the man I thought I knew completely was still learning how to be honest with himself. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first real step toward healing. But the road ahead? It was far from over. The days that followed felt like walking through a storm without an umbrella. Nothing had changed on the outside, the same school mornings, the same casual family dinners, the same tired greetings. But inside me, everything was different. I had become the keeper of a truth that didn't belong entirely to me. Every time I looked at my mother, I felt this ache in my chest, wondering how she would react if she knew. Would it break her? Would she walk away? Or had she already given up long before I even realized? I watched her more closely now. She was always busy. Cleaning something. Checking work emails. Cooking in silence. She rarely made eye contact with Dad anymore, and when she did, it felt hollow. No spark. No warmth. Like two people playing roles they forgot how to believe in. And I couldn't help but think, maybe she sensed it too. Maybe the distance between them wasn't a secret anymore. Just something no one wanted to name. One night, I heard them talking behind their bedroom door. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the sound of my mom's voice, low, tense, caught my attention. I paused in the hallway. She said something like, "You're always somewhere else." And then silence. A long pause. Then Dad said, "I'm trying." His voice cracked on that last word. I didn't stay long enough to hear the rest. It hurt too much. It felt like standing on the edge of something that could fall apart at any second. Meanwhile, school became my only distraction. But even there, I wasn't fully present. My best friend, Layla, noticed. She asked if I was okay more than once, but I brushed her off. I didn't know how to explain what I was going through without breaking the promise I made to my dad. Every time I thought about telling her, something inside stopped me. This wasn't my story to share. Not yet. But it got harder when I started noticing a new pattern. My dad's behavior had changed, again. He was quieter than before. More distant. He still went to therapy, but something about him felt heavier, like even the sessions weren't enough anymore. I caught him sitting in his car one evening, just staring at the steering wheel for almost 30 minutes before coming inside. He didn't see me watching from the window. His face looked tired. Not just physically, but emotionally worn out. Then, a few days later, I saw him on the phone again in the backyard. He was pacing, like before, but his voice was more intense this time. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught the name, Zura. That stopped me cold. I thought it was over. I thought he had ended that chapter. But now I wasn't sure. That night, I asked him if he was okay. He gave me a small smile and said, "Some things don't leave easily, even when you try to let go." I didn't push further. I just nodded. But inside, my mind was spinning again. What did that mean? Was he still in contact with her? Was the emotional affair still happening, just in a quieter way? I started to feel like I was being pulled in two directions, wanting to protect my mom, but also wanting to understand my dad. He wasn't a bad person. But he was clearly lost. And the more I tried to be there for him, the more it started affecting me. I felt like I was carrying his pain with me every day. And there was no one I could turn to. Then one evening, I came home and found Mom crying quietly in the kitchen. She wiped her face quickly when she saw me, pretending it was nothing. But the look in her eyes was different this time. Not tired, hurt. Broken. She didn't say what was wrong, and I didn't ask. But I had a sinking feeling that maybe she had found something. Maybe she had seen a message. Or overheard a call. Maybe the truth was finally starting to come out, piece by piece. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept running in circles. What would happen to our family if everything unraveled? Would they stay together for us? Or had we already passed the point of no return? I didn't have the answers. But I knew this, the truth was no longer hidden in just one corner of the house. It was beginning to leak into every room, every glance, every silence. And sooner or later, it was going to demand to be heard. The next few days felt like walking through fog. Everyone in the house seemed to be pretending, but it was clear that something had shifted. My mom no longer asked where my dad was going in the evenings. She just stayed quiet, moving through her routines like a machine. My dad avoided eye contact, coming home late, eating dinner in silence, and heading to the bedroom without a word. It felt like we were all holding our breath, waiting for something to break. Then one night, it happened. I was upstairs doing homework when I heard voices, louder than usual. At first, it was just muffled arguing. Then my mom's voice, sharp and trembling, cut through the walls. "How long has this been going on?" she demanded. I froze. My hands stopped moving. My breath caught. She knew. Somehow, she had found out. Whether it was a message, a call, or maybe just the weight of everything finally making sense, she knew. I crept down the hallway, heart pounding. I couldn't hear every word, but what I caught was enough. My dad was trying to explain, to defend, to say it wasn't what she thought. But my mom wasn't having it. "You lied to me. To all of us," she said, her voice cracking. "You let me sleep next to you every night while you were giving yourself to someone else." My legs felt weak. I sat at the top of the stairs, trying to stay quiet. Every word felt like a punch to the chest. I wanted to go down, to do something, say something, but I couldn't move. And then, my name came up. My mom said, "Did you think I wouldn't find out that she knew? That your daughter knew before I did?" My stomach twisted. My dad didn't deny it. He said he was trying to protect me, that he was trying to fix things first before it got out of control. But it was already out of control. The sound of something breaking made me flinch. A glass? A plate? I couldn't tell. Then came silence. Not peaceful silence, dead silence. The kind that comes when everything has been said, and nothing can be taken back. I slipped back into my room, hands shaking. My secret wasn't a secret anymore. The truth had exploded, and now there was no telling what would come next. The tension was thick. The family I thought I knew was hanging by a thread. And I had no idea if it could survive what was coming. The next morning, no one spoke. The air at the breakfast table felt heavy, thick with the weight of everything that had been said the night before. My dad quietly sipped his tea, my mom barely touched her food, and my younger brother stared at his phone, completely unaware of the storm brewing around him. I kept my head down, unsure of how to exist in that moment. But just when I thought the worst had already happened, life threw another punch we didn't see coming. Later that evening, I heard the doorbell ring. My mom answered, and I heard her voice shift, confused, then cold. I peeked down the hallway and saw a woman standing at our doorstep. I didn't recognize her at first. But then, my heart dropped. It was Zara. She wasn't loud or dramatic. In fact, she looked nervous. She handed my mom a sealed envelope and said something too low for me to hear. My mom didn't say a word, just took the envelope and closed the door without another look. I wanted to run downstairs and ask what was happening, but something in my chest told me to stay put. That night, I overheard them again. My mom's voice, trembling with rage, said, "She showed up here. She came to my house. Do you understand how humiliated I feel right now?" My dad's reply was quiet, almost broken. "I didn't ask her to. I swear I didn't know." The envelope. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What was in it? A letter? More secrets? Or maybe a truth that neither of them had the courage to speak out loud? Whatever it was, it had changed everything again. And now, it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the past catching up to us, and this time, it was right at our doorstep. The envelope sat untouched on the kitchen counter for 2 days. No one spoke about it, but everyone saw it. It was like a ghost, quietly reminding us that nothing was over. Then, on the third evening, I came downstairs to find my mom holding it, her hands shaking. My dad stood across from her, saying nothing, just waiting. I stood at the doorway, frozen. She opened it slowly, pulled out a handwritten letter. I watched her eyes move across the page, her face unreadable. Then tears started falling, quiet but steady. She looked up at him. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" He took a shaky breath. "Because I didn't think you'd believe me." She turned to me and held out the letter. I walked over, heart pounding, and read it. Zara had written everything, how the relationship started, how it ended, how she pushed my father to face his pain instead of running from it. But that wasn't the twist. Near the end, she revealed something none of us expected: Zara was leaving the country. She had come to our house not to stir chaos, but to say goodbye, to ensure that my dad had told the truth and that we, as a family, could move forward. The twist wasn't in the betrayal. It was in the realization that sometimes people walk into your life for a reason, even if it breaks something first. My mom stood there, holding the letter, then looked at my dad. "You should have trusted me sooner." And for the first time in weeks, she didn't sound angry. Just tired. We all sat in silence that night, together. Not whole, not healed, but finally honest. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Or maybe, the real healing was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically go back to normal, but they didn't fall apart either. My mom didn't forgive my dad overnight, but she didn't leave him. They started therapy together, this time as a couple, facing everything they had been avoiding for years. There were still quiet dinners, still awkward silences, but there was also effort. Real effort. My dad was more present, emotionally and physically. No more late-night calls, no more secrets. He even started joining me on evening walks, talking to me like a person, not just a parent. I asked him once if he regretted everything, and he said something I'll never forget. I regret the pain I caused. But not the wake-up call. Because it made me realize what really matters before I lost it all. That stayed with me. As for me, I stopped carrying the weight of everyone's silence alone. I opened up to Layla, told her the whole story. She didn't judge. She just listened, which was all I really needed. Sometimes just having one safe person makes all the difference. The truth nearly tore our family apart. But it also forced us to finally be honest, with each other and with ourselves. Infidelity isn't just about cheating. It's about what we run from, what we hide, and whether we're willing to face the damage before it's too late. In the end, I learned that healing isn't loud. It's slow, quiet, and full of small choices. And sometimes, the person you end up saving is the one you thought was beyond saving.